Think about every single morning you've ever walked outside. The birds are there. You've probably walked past 100 dead birds and never seen a single one. Not because you weren't paying attention, because they weren't there. Somewhere between the bird singing on your fence this morning and the moment it dies, which could be today, could be tomorrow, statistically might already be happening right now, something makes it disappear. Completely. Without a trace. No body on the sidewalk, no feathers on the lawn, nothing. And the strangest part? You've never noticed that you've never noticed. That's not an accident. That's not luck. That's one of the most precisely engineered vanishing acts in the natural world. And it's been happening all around you, every single day, your entire life. So where are they going?
Let's start with the scale, because without understanding the scale, you won't grasp how strange this really is. There are approximately 200 to 400 billion birds alive on Earth at any given moment. In North America alone, ornithologists estimate around 10 billion individual birds across all species. And the mortality rate is brutal. For most songbirds, annual survival is somewhere between 40 and 70% depending on the species. That means in any given year, billions of birds die in North America. Billions. Not thousands, not millions, billions. Let that number sit for a moment. If even 1% of those deaths produced a visible carcass that lasted 24 hours, you would be tripping over dead birds on your morning walk. They would be on the sidewalks, in the gutters, on park benches. You would see them constantly. Children would ask about them. Cities would have to manage them the way they manage litter. But you don't see them, which means something is happening, something systematic, something almost perfectly efficient that removes the evidence of billions of deaths before you can ever encounter it. And the explanation starts not with death itself, but with the moments just before it.
A sick bird does not behave like a healthy bird. This seems obvious when you say it out loud, but the behavioral shift that happens in the hours before a bird dies is specific, deliberate seeming, and deeply counterintuitive when you understand what it's actually doing. Researchers studying avian disease, tracking everything from West Nile virus to salmonella to avian influenza, have documented a consistent pattern in the late stages of illness. As a bird's condition deteriorates, it withdraws, not socially, not emotionally in the way we use that word, but physically. It moves away from open space. It stops perching on exposed branches. It drops into the interior of bushes, into dense ground cover, into the base of hedges, into the tangled undergrowth where the light barely reaches. Why? Because a bird that is too sick or too injured to fly well has only one remaining survival strategy: concealment. Every instinct it has is still running the same ancient program: don't be seen, don't be easy prey. The threat response doesn't switch off just because there's no specific predator present. A compromised bird becomes a hiding bird. And here is the part that matters.
The place a bird retreats to in its final hours, the dense, invisible, impenetrable undergrowth, is exactly the place that conceals its body after death. The bird does not choose to die somewhere hidden. It hides somewhere safe, and then it dies there. The outcome is the same. The body ends up exactly where you will never look. Think about the walk you take most mornings. Think about the bushes you pass, the thick shrubs along the fence line, the overgrown base of the hedgerow, the tangle of weeds at the edge of the park. You walk past these spaces every day and you don't look into them. Not really. No one does. But the bodies are there. That's the first layer of the answer. But it's only the first. Because even when birds do die in the open, and they do sometimes, the body doesn't stay there long. Studies on scavenger efficiency in urban and suburban environments have produced a number that is genuinely shocking once you hear it. The average time a small bird carcass remains visible in an area with an active scavenger population is somewhere between 30 minutes and 4 hours.
30 minutes. Think about your morning. You wake up, make coffee, leave the house around 8 a.m. If a bird died on your front lawn at 7:30, it could already be gone by the time you walked out the door. You would never know. The lawn would look exactly the same as it always does. There would be no trace. The scavengers doing this work are not what you picture when you hear the word scavenger. You're not imagining a vulture. You're imagining something much smaller, much faster, and much closer to your house than you realize. In warm weather, insects are the first responders. Ants, blowflies, carrion beetles, they detect a carcass within minutes. In the right conditions, the soft tissue of a small bird can be largely consumed by insect activity within hours. But the faster, more complete removal happens through something else entirely. Cats. Free-ranging domestic cats are among the most efficient removers of bird carcasses in suburban environments. A 2013 study in Nature Communications estimated that cats in the United States kill between 1.3 and 4 billion birds annually. But killing is not the only thing they do.
A dead or dying bird on the ground is an easy meal, and cats are territorial animals that patrol their range repeatedly, often through the night. A cat passing through your yard at 2 a.m. encounters a dead bird. By the time your alarm goes off, the cat and the bird are both gone. You were never part of that story. Add to this the nocturnal scavenging of raccoons, opossums, foxes, and skunks, all of which are far more common in suburban and urban areas than most people realize, and all of which will take a bird carcass in any condition. Add crows, which are extraordinarily intelligent and have large territorial memories, and will take a dead bird within sight the moment it's safe to do so. Add blue jays, which are more omnivorous than their reputation suggests. Add squirrels, which will consume bone and animal matter in winter when plant-based food runs scarce. The scavenger network is vast, efficient, and largely invisible because it operates at night, in the margins, in the hours between when you go inside and when you come back out. Researchers studying bird mortality in the field have had to adapt to this. They check carcass locations multiple times per day, not once, because by the second check, the evidence is often already gone. But there's still a third piece of this, and this one is darker.
A large portion of bird deaths never produce a visible body at all. Predation is one of the leading causes of mortality in wild birds, and predation, by its nature, removes the body from the scene of death immediately. Consider a sharp-shinned hawk hunting a residential neighborhood. The hawk doesn't wait. It takes a house finch mid-flight, carries it to a perch in a tree you're not looking at, and consumes it there, leaving behind only scattered feathers and indigestible pellets that drop silently into the undergrowth. There was a death. There is no carcass. The evidence is a handful of feathers that will blow away by afternoon. Consider an owl hunting at night. A great horned owl can take a sleeping bird from a roost in absolute silence. The kill is over in seconds. The owl carries it away, consumes it, and regurgitates a compact pellet of bones and feathers hours later, often miles from where the death occurred. You walk your neighborhood in the daylight, and nothing looks different. The bird is just gone. Mammals do the same. Cats, foxes, weasels, mink, they take birds and relocate them instantly. The death site and the consumption site are never the same, and the consumption site is never somewhere you're looking.
So when you layer these three mechanisms on top of each other, concealment during dying, rapid scavenging of exposed remains, and predation that removes the body entirely, the probability of you randomly encountering a dead bird approaches something very close to zero. You would need the bird to die in the open, on a surface you actually examine, in the narrow window between death and the arrival of the first scavenger, in a location that isn't immediately claimed by an opportunistic predator. Every one of those conditions has to be met simultaneously. It almost never happens, and now you know why. But here's what I haven't told you yet, and it's the part that changes how you think about birds entirely. For a long time, the scientific consensus on birds and death was fairly dismissive. Birds don't understand death. They lack the neurological complexity. They don't grieve. They don't mourn. They process the absence of a flock member the way a clock processes the removal of a gear, through dysfunction, not recognition. That consensus has begun to crack. Not collapse, but crack.
The research that started pulling at that assumption focused on corvids, crows, ravens, jays, and magpies. These birds have been studied intensively over the past 2 decades, in part because their intelligence keeps producing results that the prevailing model can't easily explain. In 2015, researchers at the University of Washington published findings from a long-term study of crow behavior around crow carcasses. What they documented was unexpected. When a crow died in the territory of a crow group, other crows came, not 1 or 2, sometimes dozens. They gathered around the body, calling loudly, circling, landing nearby, remaining in the area for extended periods. The behavior was consistent across populations, repeatable, and notably not directed at any visible predator. The crows weren't mobbing a threat. They were responding to the dead crow itself. Then came the detail that no one was quite prepared for. After these gatherings, these events the researchers carefully avoided calling funerals, the crows avoided the location, not permanently, but for weeks, even when food was available there, even when the location was well within their established territory.
The experience of encountering the dead crow had changed something in how those living crows evaluated that space. They had incorporated the death into their understanding of the environment. That is a form of learning from death. Whether it involves anything like what we'd call awareness or grief or understanding in a philosophical sense, researchers are cautious about those words, for good reason. The weight of those words doesn't always match what the evidence can support. But the behavior is real, and it doesn't have an easy explanation. Magpies, which are corvids, have been observed doing something even harder to explain away. Individual magpies have been documented placing grass and small objects beside or on the bodies of dead magpies. This behavior has no apparent survival function. It doesn't protect the body, it doesn't alert the group to a threat, it doesn't directly benefit the living bird in any measurable way. It looks, to human observers, like something adjacent to burial, like something adjacent to ritual. Western scrub jays, according to research out of UC Davis, will stop their food caching behavior entirely and begin producing alarm calls when they encounter a dead jay, behaviors that suggest heightened threat assessment and social communication about the death.
They are, in some sense, announcing it to others. None of this proves that birds have a concept of mortality. Researchers are appropriately careful not to make that leap. But it does establish something important. For at least some bird species, death is not simply ignored, it is registered. It produces specific, consistent, socially coordinated responses. The death of one bird changes the behavior of others around it in ways that are not random and not easily explained by hunger, territory, or simple confusion. That is not nothing. And it means that somewhere out in the trees right now, in the undergrowth and the canopies, and the quiet spaces between your house and the next, birds may be doing something around their dead that you have never seen and never thought to look for. The full picture now looks like this. Birds are dying in enormous numbers every single day. They retreat to concealment as their bodies fail, guided by the same instincts that kept them alive. Instincts that, in their final act, make their deaths invisible. Any body that does appear in the open is removed within minutes to hours by a scavenging network so efficient that researchers have to race it just to document what's happening. And a large portion of bird deaths never produce accessible remains at all, consumed by predators that carry the evidence far from where it fell. The absence of dead birds in your daily life is not a mystery. It is a system, overlapping, interlocking, ancient. Each part of it evolved for different reasons: predator avoidance, resource competition, territorial behavior. But together, they produce something that looks almost designed, a near-perfect erasure of death from the visible world. And layered beneath all of that, in the most cognitively complex bird species, there may be something else happening entirely. A recognition, a response, behavior that doesn't fit neatly into our models of what animals know or feel. You've walked past these deaths your entire life. You've walked past the hiding places, the scavenged spaces, the silent gatherings in branches you didn't look up at. The world has been full of this the whole time. You were just never looking in the right direction. I want to hear from you. Have you ever found a dead bird? Where? On a sidewalk? In your yard? Tucked into a bush? What species was it? Did anything seem strange about where it was or how it looked?